Hello, my name is Tara Kachataroff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today we have as our special guest Jimmy Tomczak, who is the founder at TOMBOLO and the inventor of Paper Feet. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
well,
it.
This is going to be a fascinating show, and for many different reasons. The first one being the fact that you are the youngest entrepreneur to be on the program at, how old
23.
are you? 23 years old. So you've set a new record for us in the over 200 shows that we've done, so congratulations.
Yeah, it's funny that I applied for a Guinness World Record actually for the world's thinnest flexible sandal originally, so I'm always trying to break records.
That's great. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know where to start with all this, but we'll start right at the beginning.
Okay.
Jimmy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at your company, and then we'll weave our way through the fascinating story.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Jimmy Tomczak. I founded TOMBOLO after creating the world's thinnest sandal made from billboard vinyl, actually, and they're called Paper Feet because they're paper thin.
And it's unbelievable. So you've made a product, and we're going to talk in more detail about this product. But your company, just to start off, it has an interesting name, TOMBOLO.
Sure.
I was like, what does that mean? But there is a meaning to it. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a TOMBOLO in creating the shoe, the Paper Feet, it wasn't about like the next sandal or whatever it was. It was about kind of the eco outdoor mindset. I love the outdoors. I live on the lake, that kind of thing. And wanted that whole mindset built into the company, not just the product, Paper Feet, but the company as well. And a tombolo is this sandbar. It's kind of like a rare sand phenomenon that connects an island to the mainland. And I wanted to present something that kind of connects people with the same kind of mindset of connective goods for the collective good and that kind of thing. So TOMBOLO, or TOMBOLO Goods Manufacturing, and what we do is we manufacture good.
You manufacture good. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fantastic. And what about your schooling? I mean, you're just almost freshly out of college, a little bit, just a little bit. So what did you study at college? And what did you study at college? And how did you make the transition from a college student to I'm a business owner?
Being in college is actually the best time to start a business. You're broke, you're poor, you're like trying to do some fun stuff, but still make some money. So I actually studied neuroscience at Michigan. Which
is what? Why don't you explain what that is exactly?
So neuroscience is biological psychology. It's kind of the study of, it's a little bit more technical than just psychology. It goes deeper into the biological underpinnings of the brain and how it works and things like that. But it turns out that that's actually a great transition to different business things, because you learn how, not only the psychology of how people think, but the why and the how and the brain works and how that's connected right from your brain to your feet with the shoes. So
how did you get into that particular major in college?
You know, I went in. It's not like I kind of just woke up.
Did you know that when you were started as a freshman, I'm going to study neuroscience?
No, at all. I was actually interested in sort of medicine and health and different things along those lines, and was looking at. I went in with that kind of mindset. You don't need a pre-health background to study that, to go to med school or anything like that. You need just a broad liberal arts education, and so I went in not having declared anything, and then I looked at some of the different options, and I was working in a lab at the time, a neuroscience research lab. And I just loved it. I loved some of the different classes I was taking. It was just really interesting stuff, cutting edge at the University of Michigan. And I, about 2 years into it, I said, well, this is going to be my thing. And then I did that. And by the time I completed the program, neuroscience, I was also wanted to take some fun classes too. You try to intersperse it with the different things that you're doing. And so I started taking a couple classes, and I realized that they were from the program in entrepreneurship. So Michigan has this newer thing. When I was there, it was like a brand new program. I didn't know about it. And then I started hearing more and more about it, and realized that a couple of the classes that I had already taken, like jazz studies and photography and some of these different like creative process type classes, and I loved it. And I realized that, hey, this is part of the program in entrepreneurship. So I completed that. It's a certificate program, but they said, well, normally it'll take you 2 years, whatever it is, to do it. I crammed it into one semester, so I was taking like 23 credits and did it right before I graduated, at the same time trying to found the company and doing the Paper Feet things and going to these different conferences and talking to people and trying to get scholarships to do all this kind of stuff. So it was kind of a whirlwind, and then somewhere in there I graduated and founded the company, and it's been fun since.
Well, let's take a look at the product, and we'll still talk more about the story of how this unfolded.
Sure.
I just want to, hold up for the camera so people can see it. These are do we call them shoes? Paper feet.
Shoes, in air quotes, right?
Air quotes, yeah. These are paper feet.
Yeah.
They're paper thin. and they come in different colors and this and that. And can you you're wearing them right now, and can you kind of demonstrate like the shoe?
Sure, yeah, because I mean, when you get a pair of these in your hand, you're like, wait a second,
what is this?
Is that a shoe? How does that work? So, every pair is totally unique because they're cut from billboard vinyl. So you have this shoe that you can roll up, put in your pocket like this. You pull it out of your pocket, and when you need it, that kind of situation, you unfold it, and you grab a pair, and all you have to do is you just undo this one strap. They're Velcro brand, Velcro made in the USA. All the materials are local. Everything that's kind of the social entrepreneur things that I learned when I was at Michigan and really wanted to do good and do well, not just starting the next fad footwear company, but having something that gives back and has a deeper impact than that. So the shoe, you open it up, and then this is the toe strap, and so you put your foot in right there, and I'll switch to my little footsie model so that you can see kind of what it looks like right here. It goes over the toe. You can actually wear it between the toe as well if you wanted to, more like a thong flip-flop sandal. And so it's like a standard shoe, but it fits like a second skin, and that's really what it feels like because it's paper thin. They're not made with paper. Billboard vinyl, I guess this is like one of the first things I should explain because it's actually, I'll take out this little...
what billboard vinyl is. And billboard vinyl, I mean, you're talking about the billboards we see when we're driving down the freeway.
Exactly. So you're giant, it's a 14 by 48 foot, like a McDonald's advertisement or whatever.
So they're huge.
They're giant. Like it would take up half this room or whatever. I didn't know that billboards, I thought they were still made with paper. However, they, like back in the day, they painted them.
I didn't know they were vinyl.
So it's this vinyl. It's like a shower curtain meets pool tarp and then layered, and that's how you can see it's fiber reinforced. So it's actually really durable.
Right. Yeah.
And I was working on like the entrepreneurial things. I was working on a real estate project at the time, and I needed I had a leak in the roof, and I didn't have the money to fix it. Like I said, poor college student kind of thing. And I said, the contractor's like, well, we used to use billboards at the job site. We used to pick these up from the local ad companies and use them as different tarps. So why don't you make a couple calls and see what you can do? So I picked up the phone, and $20 later, I got a McDonald's billboard.
For $20?
Yeah, $20.
I hope they roll it up so you can put it on the top of your car.
It weighs about 80 pounds.
80
so you
pounds?
you can barely lift it up.
Oh my God.
And I used it for the roof, and when I took it down, I revisited the idea for the sandals that I originally had, which were made from Tyvek. I set the idea aside because I was doing my neuroscience and everything else. But eventually realized that thin, lightweight material that's just thick enough so that you still feel barefoot, but that you protect your feet actually works. And then since then, like the pair that I showed is literally just one layer of vinyl. But the newer ones, like the ones that I'm wearing, actually have like a rubberized grip on the bottom and a little bit more wear protection. And some people had requested that, and you learn a ton of stuff along the way. So that's
right. Well, when you take a step back, where did you get the idea? I mean, were you just sitting out there in front of the lake contemplating life, and you came up with like, I'm going to create shoes. I'm going to create paper feet. How did this come about? What started this company?
I mean, it certainly wasn't like I just woke up one day and said, I'm going to make shoes. Like, oh, that's a great idea. It was kind of like an evolution of thought and entrepreneurial mindset, like from when I was running my lawn business, back in high school and a little bit like that. And then I started selling things on eBay, and I had these, that was through college a little bit. But I realized, like, what's the difference between this entrepreneurship and like hustling? Like, it's not just about making the money. I wanted something that has a greater impact, something bigger than myself, bigger than itself, to have potentially global impact. And that's when I started, what can I invent? Like, there's all these inspiring inventors out there. And at the time, I'm like, there was this trending barefoot movement and these foot glove shoes out there. I'm sure you see the toe ones.
Because I've tried the socks with toes in them. It's so uncomfortable. I don't know how anybody can buy those little like neoprene kind of shoes or whatever they are they're made out of. Yeah. And they run in them and they do all sorts of extreme sports in them.
Exactly.
But they look so awful, uncomfortable to me.
They're different. I mean, it's like, when you spread your toes kind of like that, that's kind of what it does.
And it hurts, I'm
sure.
To
top things off, they're like $100. Yeah, I don't spend that much on my normal shoes. And this is kind of the scrappy entrepreneurial mindset that I said, well, hey, I can do it better. And I tried. And there were like 20 different versions of the shoe, iterations of like, okay, this one, I could barely walk down the street in it before it fell apart. And then this one works, it fits a little bit better. Originally, they were made from Tyvek.
Yeah, Tyvek from the homes.
Yeah, house wrap, that kind of thing. And why I had Tyvek. That's pretty thin.
It
is. It's thinner than this. That's actually where the name paper feet comes from, because they were white. Tyvek's white, and it paper thin. And it literally looked like I was wearing a pair of paper. Like, what are you doing with paper on your feet? And the name stuck. I set the idea aside. The Tyvek originally was from Tyvek envelopes. So if you're doing, like I said, I was doing the eBay stuff. Priority mail envelopes or FedEx mailers are made with this waterproof, puncture-resistant, tear-proof material. And it's great for shipping stuff and making sure it doesn't get damaged, but it wasn't really ideal for the shoe that I was trying to create. So I set the idea aside, and later it kind of, like I told you, the real estate thing with the shoes, and eventually tried the billboard vinyl, and it worked. So I started sharing it with some other people and you know, friends, like, hey, try this out, you know, check this out, wear a pair. And once I had a pair for myself that worked, I started working on different sizes and different people and trying to meet all these different people with different shoes and every the different anatomy that goes into creating something that's as close to one size fits all as possible, which I found out isn't possible.
Right.
And then going from there.
Feet are all over the place. Actually, and so you have a patent pending on this, and you're getting that worked through with your attorneys and such. And and you've gotten the word out about this. Can you share some of the places that you've been able to get some media press from? I mean, some great, amazing things like Wall Street Journal. Tell us a little bit about some of these big names that have. How did they find you, first of all?
Exactly. Well, at paperfeet.com, I guess I'll throw that out there because that's actually one year ago yesterday. I released the very first beta release version of Paperfeet via paperfeet.com, and sales went live. So in less than a year, all the Wall Street Journal and Entrepreneur Magazine and all these different things that they wanted to, you know, share the story, the kind of
it's truly
Paperfeet
unique
story, you know, like the beach mindset and this California adventures and different things like that. Even though I grew up in Michigan, and kind of, you know, that's what I've learned along the way is like you have to be able to tell your story so that it's clear, so that everybody understands it, and it's not as simple as like some of these entrepreneurial things like you read and you know, I invented this app because I needed this. And it's like the one sentence version. I say, well, you know, I needed shoes. Like, I guess so.
You know, what would be really neat is once you, you know, when you branch out and you become like, you know, have your own catalog like Patagonia, is having people send in the stories. I use these to scale, you know, this particular mountain, or you know what I mean. Those stories are going to be amazing. If you, I'm sure you already have them. You know, I wore these to a wedding, or I wore, you know, I got married in one of these, and they couldn't tell because my dress covered it. You know, I mean, you're going to have a lot of neat things. Like for weddings, somebody's going to want this.
Exactly.
All decorated for their weddings. You could have a whole wedding area. You know, bridal
completely
stuff.
The story part is so much fun.
It is. You have a great story.
You know, I didn't know, like I said, I didn't, you know, I'm not a cobbler. I didn't study design and footwear creation. So I learned a ton along the way. But in the process, you know, the QR codes are really popular these days. I actually released, each shoe had a custom QR code that you could track your adventures. So that you could, you know, type how you're using this in the, you know, stories. This one time in Mexico, and this person, like VW bus and hot springs and all these different things that I wanted to learn, like what the crazy things that people are doing out there, these adventures that they're having, and then how are you using the shoe as well. So that was like right from the start, all these different stories that I got, and then, you know, continuing on, it's been a lot of fun.
You could have like the Paperfeet docudrama, you know, and do kind of like a reality show.
Tombolo, that connective, exactly.
That is unbelievable. That is absolutely unbelievable. So what are some of the things that people are doing with these shoes in terms of how are they using them? I mean, one of the things, of course, we had talked about earlier was like, you know, for women who, you know, we wear heels, but we don't want to be running around in our heels when we have to do something. Although we can't really wear these too much in the snow, but you can have a snow version. But they're so great because we can throw them in our purse, and they're really, I mean, you could just keep folding, you know, you can fold this up pretty small.
Yeah, a pair weighs about 3 ounces.
3 ounces? Yep. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. What other kinds of, you know, what are you hearing back from people? Where are they wearing these? Can you surf with these? Are you going to slip off a surfboard on these? Are they too slippery?
You know, I've talked to surfers and the different things like that. They say they're actually the ones that have like a pair of the 5 fingers, the toe shoes, and then they say they have to carry a backpack, you know, with them because they want to surf barefoot, and so they have to, you know, have all their stuff with them. These you can actually you can fold them in half and take the strap like this and actually just wear them on your wrist. So even if you're at the beach and you don't have pockets, you can you can wear them.
Yeah, that's super.
Stand-up paddleboarding, I know it's not surfing, but like let's say you want to, you're paddle surfing down the beach and you want to go to this swim-up bar or something, or you go to a place, there's a restaurant, let's say on the, you know, beachside boardwalk thing, and they say no shirt, no shoes, no service. They're not going to let you in. And I'm like, what do? You pull out a pair of Paperfeet and you say it's not a problem. So this is your shoe.
That's great.
Maybe that's that's not the most relatable
but it's
one.
But super because you know people hanging out in all the beach communities in Michigan and wherever in the world.
You go to Holland, Michigan, or Grand Haven, any of these places, and you park in the parking lot, and you know it's 90 degrees, burning your feet, and then burning your feet on the sand. So you just put on a pair of these, and it's not a problem. And then you don't have to worry about having them, you know, like where am I going to put them when I get them?
How are they insulation-wise? Did they have fairly good insulation against hot pavement?
Yeah, it feels, because it kind of just
buys you